So today we will be talking to you a bit about the ear. And to start, we will be covering the outer ear portion. Throughout the video, we will be pointing out and describing the different portions and functions of the various parts of the ear. So to start, this is the outer ear, otherwise known as the auricle. And the function of the auricle is to gather high-frequency sounds and help with localizing sounds delivered to the head. Here we have the helix. Inside we have what's known as the scaphoid fossa. Here we have the cymbala concha. And down here we have the bigger portion, which is known as the cavum concha. In here we have the crus of the antihelix. In here we have what's typically seen as the fossa triangularis. However, some ears have it more prominently displayed than others, and this ear tends to be a little flatter, so it's harder to decipher. But normally, this is where the fossa triangularis is located. Down here, we have a depression known as the intertragal notch, which is located between two eminences known as the tragus and the antitragus. Down here, we have what's known as the ear lobule, or more commonly referred to as the earlobe. So after the sound goes through the auricle, you'll see that it continues along into the external auditory canal, otherwise known as the external auditory meatus. This portion is about 2.5 centimeters from the concha. The purpose of the external auditory meatus is to allow warming prior to reaching the tympanic membrane, which is located right over there. It also has a resonance peak of about 2,000 to 7,000 hertz sounds in this area. The lateral portion is known as the 1/3 lateral cartilaginous portion, and in this area there is a lot of cilia along with cerumen, and cerumen is another fancy word for earwax. It is produced in here and secreted out by the sebaceous glands and produced here in the cartilaginous portion of the EAM. It protects and prevents foreign objects from entering our ear, and it exits the body naturally when the walls of the EAM are distorted by movement of the jawbone during chewing or speaking. Moving forward and deeper into our ear, we have the bony 2/3 portion of the EAC, or the EAM. This is considered more medial as we go further into the ear, and this area does not hold any glands or cilia. Continuing on, here we have the tympanic membrane, which is a crucial part of our hearing. The tympanic membrane is also known more commonly as the eardrum. What's important about the tympanic membrane is that it aids in improving sound transmission to the inner ear. It is made up of 3 different layers. The lateral layer is made up of the same skin that is trenched over the osseous meatus, which is otherwise known as the EAM, which is the portion that we had just covered. The central layer of the tympanic membrane is more fibrous and has connective tissue, which contributes to the membrane's ability to vibrate with impinging sound waves. It provides support and strength. The medial layer is known as the mucosal layer, which is a continuous lining of mucus in the middle ear. Moving more medially from the external auditory meatus and behind the tympanic membrane, we have what is known as the tympanic cavity. The tympanic cavity is divided into 2 portions. The superior portion is known as the epitympanic recess, which is generally located above the footplate of the stapes, but here it's really hard to tell, so it's not really pictured here, but just for future reference, it is located in this general vicinity. More inferior to the epitympanic recess is the tympanic cavity proper, which is located in this area right here below the stapes and leading up until the start of the eustachian tube on the anterior wall of the middle ear. The middle ear is known as an impedance matching system. Impedance means resistant to the flow of energy, and what the impedance matching system does exactly is it takes acoustical energy and creates it into mechanical energy using the lever action of the ossicles in the middle ear. Also, a sound pressure level of 33 decibels is maintained during this process, and there is an increase in pressure due to the size of the oval window being 1/17 of the size of the tympanic membrane. In the middle ear resides the 3 smallest bones in the human body, otherwise known as the ossicles. The function of the ossicles is to help carry sound waves from the EAM to the fluid-filled inner ear. Here we have the malleus. The malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane via the manubrium. Here we have the incus, which is attached to the malleus, and here we have the stapes, which attaches to the lenticular process. A simple way of thinking about the middle ear is to think of it as a cube with 6 walls and 6 sides. Here you can see 5 of the 6 sides because the lateral wall is cut out, allowing us to see the remaining 5. The lateral wall is also known as the membranous wall because of the tympanic membrane and is made up of the tympanic membrane proper as well as the squamous portion of the temporal bone. The superior wall is the wall on top, which contains one landmark known as the tegmen tympani. The tegmen tympani is a thin sheet of bone that separates the middle cavity from the meninges. The inferior wall is the lower wall, and this also contains one landmark, which is not really pictured here, and that landmark is the jugular fossa. The jugular fossa holds the jugular vein, and the inferior wall is a tympanic plate that separates the jugular fossa from the tympanic cavity. That leads to the mastoid air cells. The tympanic antrum is the most posterior superior portion of the middle ear that connects the middle space to the mastoid air cells. And this is crucial because the middle ear needs communication with the mastoid air cells because air helps sound travel. So to keep in mind, the middle ear is full of air, which allows for communication with the mastoid air cells to help sound travel throughout the ear. Going on, we have the pyramidal eminence. And the pyramidal eminence is this little thing that you see here that is shaped like a little pyramid. And the purpose of the pyramidal eminence is to house the stapedius muscle, and it is located behind the oval window. Down below, we have the chorda tympani nerve, and the chorda tympani nerve is a nerve that runs both on the posterior wall as well as the anterior wall, and that is pictured across the picture. And the chorda tympani nerve helps deal with taste and salivary glands. Here we have the medial wall of the middle ear. The area that we are pointing to right now is known as the oval window. And the oval window contains the footplate of the stapes, and it is a small membrane allowing the footplate to access the inner ear fluids to stimulate the motion. Below that is the round window, and this is a membrane with access to the basal turn of the scala tympani of the cochlea. To the right of that, we have the promontory, and this is a prominence showing on the medial wall that is formed by the basal turn of the cochlea. Lying over it with the yellow coloring is known as the tympanic nerve. Then we have the prominence of the lateral semicircular canal, as well as the prominence of the facial canal, and the prominence of the facial canal is a projection formed by the canal that houses the facial nerve. Here we have the anterior wall of the middle ear. Although there are a lot of landmarks that lie on the anterior wall, it is hard to see them in this diagram, so we will come back to it later to explain more portions of the middle ear on the anterior wall. However, in this picture you can see the orifice, which is an opening that leads to the eustachian. Here we have a better visual of what would be the anterior wall of the middle ear. The large tube running through is known as the eustachian tube. The function of the eustachian tube is to equalize air pressure in the ear compared to the ambient air pressure, and we experience this when we go up and down in an airplane. Next to it, we have a thin sheet of bone that separates the tensor tympani muscles canal and the eustachian tube, and this bone is called the septum canalis musculotubari. Right above that, we have one of the muscles of the middle ear, and this one is the tensor tympani muscle. Not pictured here, but located in the pyramidal eminence of the posterior wall is the stapedius muscle. The purpose and function of these muscles is that they both contract to protect the ear against loud sounds. And here is where the inner ear and the vestibular system lie within the whole model of the ear. Here we have a better visual of what is the inner ear. Here we have the vestibulocochlear nerve, this larger portion leading directly up to this snail shape known as the cochlea is the cochlear nerve, and the one directly next to it is the vestibular nerve. Together they make up the vestibulocochlear nerve, known as cranial nerve 8. Here is the snail-shaped body, and this is what we call the cochlea. Here is a picture of the cochlea as we have opened it up, and this is what it looks like from the inside. You can see that the cochlear nerve looks like it continues up through the cochlea. However, that central core is known as the medullus. At the top, we have what's known as the apex, and the apex holds the heliocotrema. The heliocotrema has the function of allowing the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani to have communication. The scala vestibuli is one of the ducts that makes up the bony labyrinth in the cochlea. The other part of the bony labyrinth is the scala tympani, which is also a bony duct. Both of these ducts contain perilymph, which is a fluid. The scala vestibuli carries it up towards the apex in the heliocotrema, while the scala tympani carries it down towards the round window. The scala media is the blue portion that you see here, and this is the duct that rests between the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani. This cochlear duct, otherwise known as the scala media, is filled with endolymph, which is produced in the stria vascularis, and this duct is membrane. Here we have the organ of Corti. The organ of Corti is very important because it is the sensory organ for hearing, and it is the last place to get acoustical information. As you can see, it contains outer hair cells and inner hair cells that have cilia on top that go into the gelatinous flap labeled TM, known as the tectorial membrane. Our vestibular system uses visual, proprioceptive, and vestibular input to contribute to our whole system of equilibrium and balance. The vestibular system branches off of the inner ear. Here we have the semicircular canals. This one is the anterior semicircular canal. This one is the posterior semicircular canal. And this one is the lateral semicircular canal. The anterior and the posterior share a common leg, otherwise known as the crus commune. As you can see, at the end of each semicircular canal lies the ampulla, these little bulbs in blue. And inside the ampulla contain crista, and the crista are the pink portions in this picture. The crista are the end organs of the semicircular. Here we have the utricle and the saccule. The utricle lies on the horizontal plane, while the saccule lies on the vertical plane. They both contain the end organs for the utriculo-saccular system, known as the macula. And the utricle and the saccule are able to communicate through a point known as the ductus reunions. Thanks for watching our video!